Hello, this is Eric Chappell, author of AutoCAD Civil 3D 2014 Essentials, and this is the Essentials and Beyond exercise for Chapter 10. In this exercise, we're going to open the drawing named Sections Beyond, which you can see I have open already, and we're going to use some guidelines to make some edits and create sample lines and section views from Madison Lane. So for our first task, step 1, we want to remove the ditch on the left side of Madison Lane between stations 150 and 250. And we're talking about this little piece of ditch right here, 150 to 250. It really isn't doing anything, it's just collecting water, which is just going to sit there. So it would be better for us to remove it, let this little bit of water run down into the road and maybe flow into an inlet somewhere. So to take care of this, we're going to use the section editor. I'll click on the corridor, I'll click Section Editor. After I activate this viewport, I'll click on Section Editor. And I'm going to take it to station 2+00. And that shows the ditch on the left side. You can see it right there. So I want to remove that ditch. So I'll go to Parameter Editor, and that's my left daylight. So I'm going to go to left daylight and start zeroing out some of these values. Back slope width, fore slope width, and bottom width. I'm going to set those all to 0. And when I do that, should make the ditch disappear. So let me close that. Notice that it made the change here. So there's definitely something going on. But what I need to do is apply that change across a range of stations. So I'm going to go back to Section Editor. Again, I want to activate this viewport. Back to station 2+00. You can see the ditch is gone now. And this time I'm going to go to Parameter Editor, open that up, but then say what's in here I want to apply to a station range. And that station range is going to be 150 to 250. I'll click OK, close Parameter Editor, close the Section View Editor, and I probably need to rebuild my corridor. And there we go. We just removed the ditch. Using the Section Editor, we removed the ditch from that part of the corridor. So we went in and changed a few settings at a few stations to make a small change. Now if we wanted to remove the ditch from hundreds and hundreds of feet along the left side of the corridor, we would have to handle that possibly a different way. Step 2. Create a design sample line group that locates a sample line at every corridor section. So to do that, I'll launch the Sample Lines command. I'll select my alignment. Select the sources that I want to sample. I'll go ahead and show EG. It's my existing ground surface. And I want to show my Madison Lane corridor. So that should take care of it there. My existing ground surface and my Madison Lane, not the surface, but the corridor. I'm going to show the Madison Lane corridor. When I click OK, that brings up the toolbar. And from here I can choose the sample frequency. How do I want to space out my sample lines? And I want to do it at corridor stations. That's the part where it says create a design sample line group that locates a sample at every corridor section. So everywhere I see one of these blue lines, I'm also going to see a sample line. I'll accept the other defaults, and there you can see the sample lines located at the corridor section lines. Okay? That takes care of step 2. Step 3 is to create a sample line group intended for sheet creation. And instead of going along the corridor sections now, we want to go along 50-foot increments, even increments. So the first thing I'll do, and it doesn't tell you to do this in the exercise, I want to hide the visibility of these sample lines. I don't want to erase them. I just want them to not be visible. So I'm going to go under Alignments, Centerline Alignments, Madison Lane, Sample Line Group. I now have one sample line group under there. I'll go to Properties, and where it says Sample Lines, I'm going to pick all of them and then change their style to no display. And I'm going to change their labels and just remove the labels. So I'm taking away the labels and I'm making the sample lines I didn't erase them, I just changed the style so that they couldn't be seen. I can still create section views with them and all that good stuff, but they're just not cluttering up my drawing. So now I have room to make another sample line group. I'll click the sample lines button again, select my alignment, and I want to create a new sample line group. By default, what it wanted to do was edit the one that I had already created, so I need to force it to tell it to make a new one. So again, we're going to do EG and Madison Lane corridor. But this time, we're not going to sample along corridor stations, we're going to do by range of stations. And I'll do from the very beginning to the very end. So from alignment start true to alignment end true. And the increment is handled down here. Is under sampling increments, I set this to true. Increment along tangents 50 feet. Increment along curves 50 feet. And I don't have any spirals, but I might also do those at 50 feet. It's not uncommon to do the sampling increment more frequently along curves, maybe 10 feet, but for this case we're going to do 50 feet. We do want to do the range start and the range end, and I'll go ahead and click OK. And that's going to place sample lines not along the corridor. You can see the blue corridor lines, and it's not hitting every one of those, but it is doing it at even 50-foot stations. And also notice, because I picked end and start, I get one at 0 plus 0, 0. That's going to be important in an upcoming step, which is the next step actually, and that is to add the Jordan Court FG surface as a sampled source for the design sample line group. Alright, so actually that 0 plus 0, 0 station was more important for the other sample line group than it is for this one. But let's go ahead and see if we can create a section view. I'm going to go to my section view drop down and say create section view, my Madison Lane alignment. I'll go ahead and create section view. Alright, there we go. So this is my Madison Lane and my existing ground surface. Now I want to add the surface for Jordan Court. So I'll click my section view grid, sample more sources, and I want to add my Jordan Court FG. So let me see if I can widen this out a little bit because I can't really read it. There it is, Jordan Court FG, and I'll add that in. Click OK. And what we're looking for here, this is my assembly for Madison Lane. This is actually the existing ground section, so let me go to section properties and change that style to existing ground. Notice that's my EG surface. And this blue line is my finished ground surface for Jordan Court. Look at how the finished ground surface of Jordan Court so closely matches the crown elevation of Madison Lane. That is of course what we would hope to see, because that shows us that the two roads are tying together properly the way they should. If the Madison Lane section were sitting way up high or way down below the Jordan Court finished ground, then we would know that we have an elevation problem going on at that intersection. And of course it's very important as designers that we get all that right, so that when the road is built, we have a nice smooth riding experience in that area. So with that, we have concluded the Essentials and Beyond exercise for Chapter 10.